afternoon. Welcome everyone to Coleman Report Live, Friday edition, Fraud Friday. We have our editor, Delaney Sexton, with all the juicy fraud stories that we've been talking about. Welcome back, Delaney. It's been a while since you've been on the show. It's good to see you live from your school, right? You rented a room?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm in the school library.
Cool. And Lance, thank you for coming back. We're going to open up the show with some year-end stuff and see how everyone did with their production goals. I know it's not over yet, but we're getting to the end of the fiscal year. So we wanted to ask you about your 7A production first. Did you meet your goals that you laid out for the beginning of the year? Record growth. I think these numbers should be pretty positive. And again, we still have a couple weeks left. So
I would think they're going to be pretty positive for the yes, Joe, because we did have a record year. And I think most people probably had a pretty strong SBA lending year.
63% said they met their goals, which is great feedback. And I know everybody's been busy. I know every lender I talk to, it seems like they had an exhausting year, but a very productive year. So congratulations on that. Let's ask about 504. Did you meet your 504 production goals, which it should be over if you, I think the numbers will be around the same, but.
Yeah, these should be final numbers given the fact that 504, your basic 504 lending was completely spent a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, and again, very strong response. 60% said they met their goals. 25, I don't know, and 16, no. So congratulations, everyone. I know it's been a long, busy year, but record growth is good for everyone. So the last question I wanted, this is for you, Lance, is did you meet your PPP forgiveness goals? In the sense of, were you able to ramp up? Were you able to maybe not only use your own portal and then transition to SBA's portal, maintain your own system? I think these numbers, 65%. Yes. So
I'm not surprised by that, Joe. Forgiveness is going quite well. Most people are at least at 90% of 2020 forgiveness, and I'm going to be honest with you. There's a stubborn group of PPP borrowers who, no matter how many times you call them, email them, encourage them, that have still not applied for forgiveness. And those people have gotten statements saying, hey, you now have to make payments on your PPP loan. And the statements should encourage that number to rise. Most people on 2021 forgiveness are probably getting close to 50%. But I suspect by the end of the year, that number will be close to 90% as well.
Delaney, now let's on to the not fun stuff. We don't like to call it fun.
Oh, it is fun stuff. No.
Tell us what happened with Dr. Goyle, and he was it looks like he made a bad situation worse. So give us what this went out this morning. So tell us what's going on with the ophthalmologist. Oh, you're on mute, Delaney.
Sorry, everybody.
No
Dr. Goyle was indicted in 2019. So he was upcoding various eye procedures. What was really a simple, somewhat inexpensive procedure, he would write it up as a very complex procedure, much more expensive, and he would file that with health insurance companies, Medicare, and he had already been charged for that. So in the process of waiting for his trial, in this pretrial period, he ended up applying for a PPP loan. As I'm sure you all know, you cannot get a PPP loan if you are in current legal trouble. So of course he lied on his documents, and I believe he got about $630,000 in PPP loans. So he was very quickly charged for that as well. He pled guilty to all 6 charges.
Well,
go ahead, Lance.
This is kind of a tough situation because some people may be experiencing something like this in forgiveness. when SBA reviews and they're like, oh, that person was, defaulted on previous government debt or was indicted, but the lenders are supposed to be able to rely on the borrower's certification. So a SAM report probably would not have caught up with this. Of course, the Cavers report wouldn't have done it. About the only thing that would have gotten this is maybe a LexisNexis. So
yeah, and just go ahead and do as much due diligence as possible. However, in 2020, I mean, everybody was pushing these to get through as fast as possible. So a lot of these are going to slip through the cracks of all the safeguards, but it looks like the acronyms, all the FBI and IRS and OCC and all the regulators are starting to get sophisticated in their investigations, and SBA reviews are becoming a little bit more stringent. So, Delaney, what happened with this television star? We covered this a while ago, but the sentencing is just an eye-popping sentence. So I'll let you go ahead and set this up.
Absolutely. So Maurice Mo Fang, he's also known as Arkansas Mo, he was on a show called Love and Hip Hop Atlanta. He applied for a PPP loan worth more than $3.5 million, and of course he got it and got in trouble in May 2020. So he got multiple charges from that. And if you go to the next slide, you can actually see, I believe he bought a Rolls Royce. He paid child support, jewelry, and interesting enough, he was actually going to spend about $1 million to start a business in Arkansas, so where we're from. Now, one of the big things is we've seen many PPP cases. We've seen they get a couple of years, but not 17 and a half years. That is a pretty substantial number. So he was actually running a Ponzi scheme from May 2013 to May 2020. He had a trucking company, and he was basically lying to investors saying, give me your money, I'm going to put it into this trucking company. But instead, he was, paying to live a luxurious life, pay off his debts. I even want to say he spent a couple $100,000 to gamble in Oklahoma. I don't remember the exact number, but it was pretty big.
he stopped to visit the Cherokee Casino, probably.
Yeah, that's what I thought about.
Two things that I think are relevant here are things that really stand out in this list Delaney's presented. Paying child support and paying for restitution on a previous conviction of fraud. Those probably didn't help him stay under the radar for this particular indictment.
Yeah, and really an example, 17 and a half years is reserved for much more, violent felonies. However, the Ponzi scheme might have added to that. That's just, it's an eye-popping number in my opinion. But he did it. So he bought the Rolls Royce, he bought the watch. I mean, we talked about these last year when everybody was uncertain and some people decided to go this way. So the end of a very long story. However, that's the end of it. So
I agree with you, Joe. The eye-popping, crazy the sentence blows my mind, and it certainly opens up the possibility. For instance, we were talking about Carrie Agee. Her sentence, initially I might have thought 5 years. Now yeah. I'm thinking it's going to be longer, probably.
Well, yeah, that's a different situation. However, I think the regulators, and the government made their point with this case, with this very long sentence. So we'll see what happens with Carrie. A lot of people ask me every week or so. I get an email, and I think we're still 90 days out from sentencing hearing, but obviously we'll be covering that very closely. Go ahead, Lance.
One important fact for PPP lenders: both of these cases are ready for guaranteed purchase in the PPP platform.
What happened with the CEO of the farm equipment company, Ricky Carter? Delaney, let's do an update on that.
Yes, he was one of my first stories. So similar to Arkansas Mo, we ended up getting a sentence recently, and he got 5 years and 3 months in prison. He has to pay 6.3 million in restitution. But so a little backstory, a little context for this one. He was using big, expensive pieces of farm equipment, and he was either selling them or lending them out without the permission of his company's trust or just any knowledge. He also, I think, applied for $5 million in an SBA loan with doctored documents similar to this. He lied on a lot of his documents. So between those two crimes, he got 5 years, 3 months.
Yeah,
I know he tried to apply for.
Go ahead.
He tried to apply for many SBA loans, but a lot of the other banks were smart enough to say no. There was only one that went through, from my understanding.
Yeah, and another long sentence, 5 years for PPP fraud is eye-opening as well. So
this one actually isn't PPP fraud. This is just basic SBA fraud. Yeah.
SBA fraud, yeah, but still, I mean, these are coming in quick. This would have been if we covered this, under 100 times before 2020, then this would have been a marquee case. But Lance, what's the lesson learned in all this is for underwriters and closers to be very diligent and.
Yeah, if you have a request on an SBA loan that has equipment as collateral, which that seems to be where this falls. He had equipment that was offered for collateral on an SBA loan. Obviously, the lending institution did not do the proper due diligence running. I mean, I'd have to assume they ran UCCs, but they must not have. These farm equipment items probably have significant value, and they would have been required to list them individually with model and serial number. But it's and you never know, Joe and Delaney. The bank could have done everything right in their underwriting. This guy could have sold the equipment even with the proper UCCs filed. And the proper title information in hand. But farm equipment is kind of a challenging area to secure as an SBA lender, and you certainly want to be careful and properly secure that equipment.
We have a question from Raman. Thanks, Raman. It's basically said it's a client question. They want to be safe. They took out the maximum idle loan. They want to return some of it. Would that adjust the payments if they returned a big chunk of the idle loan?
I would have to think, Raman, that is a possibility. Now, I can't answer the question. There are disaster loan centers within SBA. One is in Birmingham. I think one's in El Paso, and there may be others. But I think what needs to be done is you need to communicate with one of the disaster loan centers, because that's what idle is. It's a disaster loan. And they are managed and serviced under the same centers that, for instance, loans for fires, hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, and others. So communicate with one of the disaster loan centers. Ask them, if you make a significant pay down on the idle loan, can they re-amortize the loan to adjust the payment to reflect the current balance? And I'm pretty sure, Joe, they'll do it, but you won't know. They'll need to call the disaster loan centers to find out.
Just a clarification. Thank you, Russell. He says if one sells the UCC equipment interstate through the broker, the lien does not travel.
Oh, great point. Great point. So we now understand why he got 5 years and 3 months in jail for this.
Right.
It's he may have sold it in a different state than where the UCCs were originally filed.
Well, excellent work, Delaney and Lance. A great week. Bob will be back next week. He is in the middle of Utah. I've been tracking him on polar steps. He's having a great trip. He says hello to everyone. And everyone have a good weekend. Next week, we're going to be doing a PDK webinar, and the week after is going to be on business acquisition underwriting. I think two very important topics. So thank you very much, Delaney. Thank you very much, Lance. And we'll see you guys on Monday at 1 o'clock Eastern for Coleman Report Live. Have a good weekend.
Have a great weekend.